This isn't your classic gothic vampire tale. It's a wild ride through hidden mythologies, bizarre production decisions, and early careers of familiar faces. In this video, we're diving into 20 of the weirdest, most surprising behind-the-scenes facts you never knew about Dracula 2000. Fact 1.
Who is this creature that walks as a man, yet costs?
When legendary actor Christopher Plummer signed on to play Van Helsing, it was a massive credibility boost. But there was a complication. Plummer was in his 70s, and the original script called for much more physical action fights, stunts, and intense pursuit sequences. Writers had to rewrite the character into a more aged Van Helsing one who relies on ancient knowledge and mysterious longevity instead of brute strength. His backstory injecting Dracula's blood to prolong his own life wasn't just a plot twist. It was also a creative workaround to explain why Van Helsing wasn't swinging stakes like an action hero. Sources say Plummer still insisted on doing as much physical acting as possible, including several stunts and close-quarters scenes that producers tried to discourage for safety. His commitment impressed the cast, though there were jokes on set about the most dignified man alive, surrounded by goths and rock music. Fact 2.
Get your hands off of us! Get off of us!
During one of the feeding scenes, Butler had to bite into a fake blood pack hidden on an actress's neck prosthetic. These packs are usually soft gel capsules designed to rupture easily, but this one had been incorrectly sealed with a harder material. When Butler bit down with force, he cracked a small portion of a front tooth. Shooting halted immediately while the on-set medic checked him. Butler was taken to a local dentist to repair the damage, and production lost several hours. Because his appearance is central to the film, even a tiny difference in tooth shape would ruin continuity. The incident made Butler more cautious during subsequent feeding scenes, but the director encouraged him to remain animalistic. Butler joked later that he literally paid in blood to make the movie. The mishap also led to changes on set. Every blood pack afterward was tested by the special effects crew using hand pressure and a bite mold to ensure no other pack was too tough. Despite the injury, the scene ended up looking great, but it stands as one of several physical issues Butler endured during production. Fact 3. One of the most surprising twists in Dracula 2000 is the revelation that Dracula isn't just a vampire, he's actually Judas Iscariot, cursed for betraying Jesus. What's even stranger is that this idea wasn't part of the early script. The story originally featured a more traditional Dracula connected vaguely to Vlad the Impaler, but during development, the producers felt the movie didn't have a unique angle to separate it from the dozens of Dracula films already in existence. They wanted a mythological hook, something operatic and biblical. Patrick Lussier and screenwriter Joel Soyson brainstormed possibilities until the concept of a religious origin surfaced. The twist was almost rejected for being too bold, but Wes Craven championed it as the only memorable thing in an otherwise typical script. Once the Judas idea was approved, the filmmakers went back and threaded hints throughout the story, including Dracula's hatred of crosses, silver, and forgiveness, all symbolically tied to Judas's suicide and betrayal. Even Gerard Butler embraced the twist, altering his performance to be more tragic and tortured rather than purely monstrous. Fact 4. One of the stylistic touches that makes Gerard Butler's Dracula so hypnotic is the eerie, reflective glint in his eyes during close-up shots. This wasn't accomplished with CGI or special contact lenses. It was done using a rare reflective cosmetic gel originally developed for The Crow, 1994. Makeup artists needed something that would catch even minimal light sources and create supernatural catchlights, making Dracula appear both seductive and predatory. The gel was applied beneath Butler's eyes and on the upper eyelids, creating an unnatural shimmer when hit by focused lighting. The effect amplified the intensity of Butler's performance, especially in scenes where Dracula stares directly into the camera or hypnotizes victims. Because the reflective quality depended heavily on angle and lighting, cinematographers had to carefully design shots to maximize the effect. This technique saved time and money rather than digitally enhancing Butler's eyes in post-production. The on-set lighting did the work naturally. The gel was chosen not just for its reflective properties, but also because it created a slightly wet, ghostly look without irritating the actor's skin. By borrowing this specialty product from The Crow, the filmmakers gave Dracula a memorable, iconic appearance that subtly elevated his supernatural aura without relying on special effects wizardry. Fact 5. The movie is frequently mistaken as a Wes Craven-directed project because of the title Wes Craven Presents Dracula 2000. The marketing leaned heavily on Craven's name due to his enormous success with the Scream franchise and other horror classics. Lionsgate hoped audiences would associate Dracula 2000 with Craven's legacy of inventive, high-quality horror, even though he had no direct creative control over daily filmmaking. Craven acted as an executive producer, reviewing story ideas, giving suggestions, and mentoring Patrick Lussier, who had served as his editor on Scream and New Nightmare. He supported the Judas twist and encouraged the film to embrace bold mythology. But he didn't oversee actors, cameras, or editing. Because the presence credit appeared prominently on posters and trailers, many viewers assumed Craven directed it. Some critics even referenced him mistakenly in reviews. Over time, this misconception became deeply embedded in horror fan culture. Lussier has spoken about the confusion, saying he felt honored but also wished the marketing hadn't overshadowed his own directing credit. Fact 6. Pop singer Vitamin C, Colleen Fitzpatrick, known for hits like Graduation, Friends Forever, appears in the film as one of Dracula's brides. This wasn't planned because she met director Patrick Lussier at a Halloween party while wearing a gothic costume. Lussier reportedly told her, "You look like one of Dracula's brides," and thought she could bring a unique, surreal pop culture vibe to the cast. Although she had some acting experience, her addition was more of a stylistic choice. Horror films around 1999-2000 loved featuring musicians, and the production team thought having a recognizable pop figure would help market the movie to young audiences. Vitamin C embraced the role enthusiastically. She even requested more exaggerated makeup and fangs to lean into the camp. One surprising detail is that her scenes were extended after the director liked her energy and screen presence. She performed some of her own wire work, despite not being trained for stunt harnesses, and reportedly surprised the stunt team by being fearless to a reckless degree. Fact 7. Several scenes were filmed in New Orleans using real 19th century cemetery ironwork that had been placed on the set for authenticity. The pieces included rusted gates, mausoleum decorations, and wrought iron cross fragments. Some of these had been removed from old grave sites undergoing restoration. Members of the crew claimed the ironwork created bad energy on set. Electrical failures occurred repeatedly, but only in scenes where the antique pieces were present. Lights blew out, cameras glitched, and the sound team reported unexplained interference. At one point, a crane's motor shorted out, halting filming. A superstitious key grip insisted the ironwork be blessed or removed, but the art department refused, citing continuity issues. Gerard Butler later recalled that the set felt like a pressure in the air, and multiple crew members reported sudden nausea or headaches while shooting near the props. Some refused to move or touch the iron pieces altogether. While many blamed the failures on high humidity and old equipment, the crew built up a mythology around the props. Fact 8. The high-energy opening involving Van Helsing's vault robbery and the mid-air cargo plane escape feels like a major set piece, but it wasn't in the original shoot. After test screenings, audiences complained the film took too long to become exciting. Producers panicked and ordered a new action sequence even though the rest of the film had already been completed. The cast was called back, the plane set was constructed quickly, and the heist was written in under a week. These last-minute pages completely changed the movie's pacing. Originally, the story opened with the museum sequence, which viewers found slow. Because the plane sequence was shot months after Gerard Butler wrapped, he had already cut his hair and moved on to another project. They used wigs and heavy shadows. To maintain continuity, the rushed schedule meant the stunt team had to choreograph fights and wire pulls in mere days, resulting in some dangerous moments. The scene went wildly over budget, but producers considered it essential for making the movie more marketable as an action horror hybrid. Fact 9. Gerard Butler insisted on performing many of his own stunts, including sequences where Dracula crawls across ceilings or clings to rafters overhead. During rehearsals, Butler would suddenly drop down or swing near the camera operators to simulate surprise attacks. One particular cameraman had a strong startle reflex and repeatedly flinched or ruined takes. During one rehearsal, Butler descended too quickly, and although no one was injured, the cameraman was so spooked that he immediately left the set. According to crew stories, he said, "I can't do this. I'm not dying because Dracula wants to do his own stunts." Production replaced him the next day. Though humorous in hindsight, it highlights the intensity Butler brought to the role. The actor later joked that being too committed may have scared more crew than vampires scared audiences. The stunt coordinator defended Butler, saying he was extremely safe, but his physical presence could be intimidating, especially when lunging from above. Fact 10. One of the film's most visually memorable elements is the distorted, glitchy reflection effect used whenever Dracula appears in a mirror or reflective surface. Strangely enough, this signature look came from a software malfunction. The post-production team was experimenting with a digital compositing tool that kept crashing and producing corrupted frames. Instead of cleanly removing Dracula's reflection, the software created twisted digital smears and pixel distortions. When the team showed the accident to Patrick Lussier, he loved it and said it looked unnatural in a supernatural way. The filmmakers then intentionally replicated the glitch for all mirror scenes, even though it required awkward workarounds because the software bug wasn't predictable. Some shots had to be broken manually, with artists simulating the corrupted effect frame by frame. The distorted reflections contributed heavily to the movie's style, giving Dracula an otherworldly presence that didn't rely on expensive visual effects. Fans often assume the glitch was a deliberate artistic design from the start, but the truth is that it was a lucky accident born from unreliable technology, one that the filmmakers embraced wholeheartedly. Fact 11.
Blood of mine.
Ever notice how Dracula's seduction scenes look less like classic horror and more like MTV gothic romance music videos? That wasn't accidental. The cinematography team literally used music video lighting rigs and shot lists. Soft glowing backlights, fog machines, gold-blue filters, slow-motion hair flips. It's vampire seduction by way of late 90s rock visual language. This came from an intentional production directive. Make Dracula look like the most dangerous lead singer alive. Gerard Butler's brooding stares was shot with beauty lens diffusion normally used for pop idols, and the nightclub-style lighting was borrowed from MTV award show rigs. Even the fabric movement was choreographed capes catching air like stagecoats. The result was Dracula as a dark rock messiah, hypnotizing his victims like a superstar instead of a creeper in a cape. Fact 12.
What are you doing?
What must be done?
That's Selena.
Not remorse.
Johnny Lee Miller performed many action scenes himself, including chases, jumps, and fights with Dracula. During a particularly intense take involving a diving roll, he landed incorrectly and twisted his knee, causing a ligament strain. Rather than delay production, Miller insisted on continuing. However, the injury affected his movement, causing a slight limp that appears in a few scenes if you look closely. To avoid revealing the injury, the crew adjusted blocking, camera angles, and even rewrote certain beats so Miller didn't need to sprint or kneel too much. The production never formally announced the injury. It only became known years later through cast interviews. Miller later joked that he gained a Van Helsing limp for realism. The surprising part is how efficiently the crew concealed it. Doubling him was considered, but they wanted emotional close-ups during physical moments. Ultimately, Miller toughing it out gave certain scenes an added sense of exhaustion and desperation, fitting the tone, though unintentionally. Fact 13. Because Dracula 2000 had a mid-range budget and allocated much of it to cast, music, and marketing, the effects department needed to stretch resources creatively. One clever cost-saving tactic was repurposing several skull and bone props originally created for From Dusk Till Dawn 2. These included fanged skulls, cracked craniums, and various skeletal remains used in morgue and lair scenes. These props were high quality but had been sitting in storage. Rather than build new molds or cast new pieces, the team repainted them and altered certain shapes so they would fit the more mythological style of Dracula 2000. Some had Gothic carvings added. Others were modified with burn marks or stylized cracks to match the Judas-based vampire lore. This reuse also helped with continuity. Many scenes required background bones or piles of vampire remains, and having a large stockpile allowed for faster set dressing. Prop reuse is common in Hollywood, but few fans recognize these skulls, despite them being fairly prominent in both films. Only dedicated horror enthusiasts noticed familiar bone structures and pointed it out years later. This economical decision quietly links Dracula 2000 to a completely different vampire franchise through shared physical artifacts. Fact 14. The original proposed title was Wes Craven Presents Dracula 2001. The production planned to release the movie after the year 2000, but the marketing team realized a key problem. Releasing a movie called 2001 in late 2000 felt confusing and less exciting. They wanted the title to feel immediately relevant to the Millennium hype. Because of this, the title was changed at the last moment to Dracula 2000, despite the story actually taking place in early 2000 or 2001 depending on interpretation. The change created minor chaos because merchandise, early posters, and international materials already featured the original title. Several territories still accidentally used Dracula 2001 in promotions. The title confusion contributed to misconceptions about when the movie was shot and why it was released so quickly. Despite the chaos, the new title ended up benefiting the film by giving it a sharp millennial identity. It remains one of those rare cases where marketing concerns directly changed a film's title. Fact 15. Nathan Fillion originally auditioned for a smaller comedic roommate character who had more lighthearted scenes. When he arrived for wardrobe fittings, the writers realized they needed someone to play Father David, a priest connected to Mary and her visions. They felt Fillion's presence and voice fit the priest role better. In an unusual move, they rewrote scenes overnight, reassigning him to the priest character. Fillion said the sudden shift forced him to rethink the tone of his performance and learn new lines quickly. Despite the last-minute change, he delivered a grounded, sincere portrayal that contrasted the more camp elements of the film. This spontaneous casting decision ended up giving the movie some emotional weight. It also helped Fillion demonstrate his range, contributing to his later casting in more serious and genre roles. Fact 16. When the production team set out to create the 30 pieces of silver tied to Judas's betrayal, they quickly discovered that typical prop coins didn't have the right appearance for close-up shots. Most standard prop metals looked flat, dull, or even plastic-like under high-intensity movie lights. Because the coins were symbolically crucial, representing the curse that turned Judas into Dracula, the filmmakers wanted them to have a distinctive gleam that immediately communicated weight and historical significance. After multiple tests, they concluded that using actual silver-plated metal was the only way to get the authentic shine the director wanted. Although this dramatically increased the cost, they only needed a few hero coins, used in close-ups, with less expensive duplicates for wide shots. Actors noted the coins felt unusually cold and heavy when handled, giving a tactile realism that influenced their performances. The sound designer also recorded the coins clinking together because the real metal produced a richer, sharper tone than cheaper alternatives. Using real, silver also connected thematically with Dracula's vulnerability to silver, an idea tied directly to Judas's suicide. The visual continuity between the coins and Dracula's weakness added to the film's mythos. Even if most viewers didn't consciously notice it, the props remain some of the most carefully crafted items in the entire production. Fact 17. Before Dracula 2000, Gerard Butler was largely unknown, having done stage work and small film roles. The studio, wanting to appeal to a teen audience in the 2000s horror boom, initially wanted a musician recognizable from MTV or VH1. Several popular rock and nu metal artists were approached or auditioned, including band frontmen who had the right dark vampire look. The logic was that musicians naturally carried the sensual, rebellious energy associated with vampires. During auditions, many musician candidates struggled with the acting demands or came off as unintentionally comedic. Butler, meanwhile, entered the audition with intense commitment, focusing on Dracula's tragic emotional depth rather than simply posing or smoldering. Patrick Lussier later said Butler walked in like a starving actor who wanted to devour the room, and it transformed the casting conversation instantly. Despite initial executives worrying he wasn't famous enough, Butler's screen test shocked everyone. Producers commented on how he seemed genuinely dangerous yet sympathetic. Butler also performed extremely physical stunts, something the musicians weren't capable of delivering. Fact 18. The original planned ending for Dracula 2000 was far more elaborate and far stranger than the one that made it to theaters. Instead of the relatively restrained fiery death scene, the filmmakers initially intended for Dracula to undergo a full demonic transformation before being destroyed. Since the film's mythology portrays Dracula as Judas Iscariot cursed by God, the ending was meant to show the true form of Judas's spiritual corruption. To achieve this, the effects team created elaborate prosthetics, including partially horned facial appliances, elongated limbs, and charred, leathery skin textures. They built animatronic components to allow the demon Dracula to snarl, open its jaws unnaturally wide, and contort as the curse overtook him. Early test footage shows a hybrid of Butler in prosthetics and a monstrous stand-in puppet for the final transformation moments. However, when this sequence was shown to test audiences, reactions were mixed to negative. Viewers felt the transformation looked too literal, too fantasy-driven, and overly reminiscent of 90s creature effects. Many preferred Dracula to remain human-looking to maintain tragic dignity. The studio ultimately cut the sequence, believing subtlety was more powerful. Fact 19. Jeri Ryan, best known as 7 of 9 from Star Trek, Voyager, plays Valerie Sharp, one of Dracula's early victims. At the time, she was filming Voyager under a demanding TV schedule. Because she didn't want to lose the opportunity to appear in a feature film, Ryan worked out a bizarre compromise. She shot her Dracula scenes during her lunch breaks from the TV show. Her production days would look like this. She'd arrive early at the Voyager set, film several scenes as 7 of 9, quickly change out of her heavy prosthetic costume, get driven to the Dracula 2000 set across town, rush through makeup, film her vampire attacks or dialogue, then hurry back to Paramount Studios. This meant she often appeared on camera exhausted, but ironically, this added to the eerie, drained look of her character. The funniest detail, she had to keep switching between playing an emotion-controlled Borg and an over-the-top vampire seductress on the same day, sometimes within hours. The crew joked she must have had the strangest acting contrast in Hollywood that year. Ryan later admitted she barely remembers filming because of how chaotic her schedule was. Fact 20. The Virgin Megastore sequence looks like blatant product placement because the film spends considerable time in a huge branded retail location. Many viewers assumed the store paid heavily for exposure. In reality, the filmmakers approached Virgin because they needed a recognizable after-hours setting that felt youthful and full of media imagery. Virgin agreed to let the production use the store overnight, but they didn't pay a cent. The store also didn't demand promotional fees or script approval. The reason? They liked the idea of their location appearing in a cool vampire movie. Ironically, executives later worried the inclusion seemed so promotional that audiences might be turned off, and they almost cut or shortened the scenes. But test audiences liked the location and found it memorable, so the scenes stayed. Because of the store's modern aesthetic, neon lighting, bright displays, and aisles of CDs, it also became a time capsule of Y2K pop culture. Today, with most Virgin Megastores long gone, the sequence feels like a nostalgic snapshot rather than marketing. And there you have it, 20 of the weirdest, wildest, and most surprising facts about Dracula 2000. If you loved this deep dive, hit like, subscribe, and ring that bell for more strange and fascinating movie breakdowns. Now tell us in the comments, which Dracula 2000 fact shocked you the most?